We're going back to the UN to continue listening on the UN General Assembly debating on the resolution on the necessity to end the U.S. blockade against Cuba.
Heard by the distinguished representatives of Iraq on behalf of the Group of 77 in China, on behalf of the community of Latin American and Caribbean states, by Colombia, and by Uganda on behalf of the Non-Aligned Movement. We extend a warm welcome to His Excellency Bruno Rodriguez Parilla, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Cuba. Madam President, I want to begin by expressing CARICOM's full solidarity for the peoples of Jamaica, Cuba, the Bahamas, and other regions as they face the fury of Hurricane Melissa. They can count on our active cooperation. Madam President, once again we gather in this Assembly to reaffirm CARICOM's steadfast commitment to the purposes and principles of the United Nations Charter, those enduring principles of sovereignty, non-interference, peaceful coexistence, and the maintenance of friendly relations between states. The unilateral economic, commercial, and financial embargo imposed by the United States of America against the Republic of Cuba remains a clear violation of the UN Charter and international law. For more than 3 decades, the General Assembly, guided by the Charter, has spoken with clarity and consistency. This embargo must end. CARICOM therefore deeply regrets that despite the near-universal calls of the international community, the embargo continues. We reiterate our concern about the severe and long-lasting socio-economic harm it inflicts upon Cuba and its people. The Cuban authorities have estimated that between March 2024 and February 2025 alone, they have suffered estimated material losses amounting to $7.5 billion US. That is approximately $20 million US lost each day. $20 million that could have been invested in the Cuban people, their health, their education, and their economy. CARICOM also reiterates its call for the removal of Cuba from the list of state sponsors of terrorism. This unjust and unwarranted designation has gravely hindered Cuba's financial operations, its international trade, its access to energy, and its ability to attract the investment so vital to sustainable economic growth. Together, these measures have negatively impacted Cuba's progress towards achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. Madam President, CARICOM's partnership with Cuba is one of profound friendship, born of mutual respect, solidarity, and a shared vision for development. Through this partnership, our nations have benefited from educational, cultural, and technical exchanges. Caribbean men and women have pursued higher education in Cuba, returning home as doctors, engineers, and teachers. In turn, Cuba has sent its own doctors, nurses, and educators to our shores, especially during moments of greatest need. When the COVID-19 pandemic struck, Cuba was among the first to respond, deploying medical brigades to several of our member states. Cuban healthcare professionals continue to make an invaluable contribution to improving access to health services across our region. Madam President, CARICOM is of the view that the time has come for genuine dialogue aimed at promoting the prosperity of the Cuban people and optimizing the full potential of what Cuba offers to its people and the rest of the world. Central to these discussions must be the lifting of the embargo, removing Cuba from the list of state sponsors of terrorism, and resuming the process of normalization of relations. As a friend of both the United States and of Cuba, CARICOM stands ready to play its part. It is in this context, Madam President, dear colleagues, that CARICOM member states will once again support the resolution entitled Necessity of Ending the Economic, Commercial, and Financial Embargo imposed by the United States of America against Cuba. I thank you, Madam President.
I thank the distinguished representative of Barbados. I now give the floor to...
We will listen to the permanent representative to the UN from Barbados, He was speaking also on behalf of all CARICOM member states, and of course continue with the expressing the CARICOM member states' willingness and their vote that they're going to vote in favor of ending the U.S. blockade, in favor of a resolution called on the necessity to end the U.S. blockade on Cuba. He was also referring to the impact that this blockade has as well for the prosperity of the island, and also calling for the immediate delisting of Cuba from the state sponsoring terrorism, which they say that is completely unwarranted for, since Cuba has been an example of solidarity that has come to the aid of Caribbean nations in their times most of need, like he made the example of the COVID-19 pandemic. We're going to stay tuned. Remember that later in the morning, the Cuban Foreign Minister, Bruno Rodriguez, will also present the yearly report of the impact that the blockade has on the economy of Cuba and the well-being of Cuban families in general. Stay tuned with us. We'll have more updates as things continue to unfold at the UN General Assembly, and different members, different representatives of different areas of the world continue to take their stand and to express their opinions, their objections to this resolution, to the fact that the U.S. for over 33 decades has continued to impose this policy of coercive economic oppression, a policy that has been, as some of the member states members have already expressed, they have continued for over 3 decades that this vote has taken place. The UN, in its vast majority, has continued to denounce and to demand the immediate end of this coercive policy, the U.S. blockade on Cuba. We'll have more in upcoming news briefs.